Hello, everybody. Welcome into the LFC Transfer Room. My name is Jack. I am delighted to be alongside Kev, Drew, and Charlie for a stream this Tuesday afternoon, becoming a very consistent slot. Myself and Kev, we're going on almost a month now that we've been doing this together. How are you doing this afternoon, my friend?
Doing well, mate. Doing well. 4 weeks in already. Seems as though it's the first one. All good, mate.
Indeed. We're going a bit earlier today, 7 o'clock rather than our usual 7:30. If you're in here, feel free to jump in the comments. Let us know how you're feeling. There's some news we'll dive into today. Drew, very early for you. We were talking before we started the stream that we've got a very good variety of time zones in the stream. How are you doing very early out in the West?
I mean, it's not very early anymore, but I kind of miss my alarm. It's like 11 o'clock a.m. here, but better than the preseason friendlies, which are all at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning for me. So, but hopefully we'll have more news to make that a happier experience as we move forward.
Indeed, Drew. And Charlie, yourself, how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, really good. Thank you for asking. Not a spot of rain, which is a absolute delight in this country for once. Ruined the cricket, but we won't talk about that.
Sure.
We're here for the red men.
That's indeed what we're here for. Let's dig into the news of the day. Let's actually do a quick poll. Do we want to go outgoings or incomings first? Charlie, I'll let you make that choice. First topic of discussion.
Let's go with outgoings.
Outgoings. All right, let's talk about Fabinho. Deal in danger of collapsing. It's the deal that came out of nowhere, £40 million to Saudi Arabia. Now there's rumors from David Ornstein that the deal that seems so close to being done, there's issues. There's a delay, and he's going to return to training on Wednesday should no progression be made on the deal. Charlie, I'll let you jump in first. It's a weird one because we haven't been given a reason for the delay and for any complications, because Ornstein also said every party wants to make the deal happen. Fabinho would like to move, Liverpool would like to move him on, and Saudi Arabia would like to sign him. For you, what kind of interpretations do you make of this kind of strange news?
Yeah, so it's kind of calls out about the amateur side of the Saudi teams on how they're operating. Essentially, everything's kind of very haphazard, devil may care kind of attitude to whatever they're trying to do. I think this personally, and this is pure speculation from my point, it probably comes down to finances. Whether the club Liverpool are satisfied that the finances that are being shown or not being shown in this instance, perhaps from the club, from the Saudi club, just hasn't kind of met Liverpool's expectations. We're not releasing a player if the money's not going to be kind of sent to us. Let's be honest with that. Again, I think that kind of just shows a little bit of a kind of lack of respect for dealing with certain clubs, and then whether there's different focus on other players, i.e. Mbappe from the kind of general Saudi population, and whether that's taken focus away from kind of completing those deals that they want to ensure kind of go through. Whether it's that, who knows? I think it will go through. I can't see it getting to this stage and then all of a sudden the rug's just been pulled from under us. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I know you read the article, haven't you, Jack?
Yeah, it's a strange one. Just to kind of, again, David Ornstein, great reporting for The Athletic as always. Honestly, my favorite source of transfer rumors out there, because when he says something, you really think it's quite progressed along. He's saying Al Ittihad is still, they want to make the deal happen, but he's going to return to training on Wednesday as things stand, which it feels weird. I agree with you. It feels like a money thing. Maybe they only have £1.5 billion set aside for transfers, and Kylian Mbappe is taking up 2/3 of that. Kev, I'll let you jump in on the Fabinho situation. We'll talk on a few angles of it, but just first for you, when you interpret that and him potentially not leaving, do you expect the move? Charlie thinks it's still going to get across the line. What do you expect in terms of the move's progression?
It's a weird one, and I couldn't disagree any more than what Charlie and yourself have put on it. For me personally, I'm not bothered either way. If he goes, he goes, and we get the money in. If he stays, I'll be happy for him to stay as well. So
it's a different situation to the Hendo one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely. I think the difference is that we predominantly thought that, and at the start of this, no one thought that Fabinho would ever leave, and he would be the one that you'd actually keep hold of, the concrete in that middle of that midfield. Everyone else was open to leaving for me. So it's different. Exactly what Charlie said. I'm not that fussed. I'll be honest. I hope it gets to Wednesday and he does stays. So that's where I am with it. It doesn't really bother me with it either way. It's if we can get Hendo out the door, I'll be more than pleased if that continues and we keep hold of Fabinho, because I think he could be utilised a lot next season, more so than what Henderson would have been.
For sure. It feels like when the transfer came about, it was no one was pushing him out the door. But if there was a solid chunk of change coming in for him, I think people were very happy to see him go out for that money. So I think, Kev, Liverpool and the club, everybody has to be in a very good spot.
For 40 million, exactly. So it makes sense because the money is about right for them. For Henderson, 10, yeah, sounds, see you later, Trag, do one, go wherever you want to go. I'm not bothered. It's different, and that's my view on it anyway. It's great.
Indeed. Jen, support as always. Thank you very much for the £1.99. Appreciate you in the comments as always. Haley or another very common folk in here. Drew, I'll let you jump in on Fabinho. It feels like the transfer from the get-go has been a case of if he goes, he goes. That's a nice, if we could bring somebody in, but it feels like a replacement for him hasn't really materialized, and it makes the incoming that we'll talk about in a little bit a bit awkward. For you on Fabinho, where does your gut tell you with this move? Because it's really gut feel right now for us as fans, because we're very much in the dark on this move.
Yeah, I feel like bringing him back into training is a bit of a strong arm move from Liverpool, saying unless you pay us and make it what we want and what we agreed upon, etc., then there's no reason for us to let him go. We're happy to have him come back in training. I'm sure none of the Liverpool players are holding any grudges against him. I'd be personally happy that Alisson has another Brazilian counterpart in the team to keep him company. But I'm not similar to Kevin Charlie. I'm not too fussed if he stays or if he goes. If he stays, I was a little disappointed to hear that he went. The last 8 games of the season, he picked it up phenomenally. I know that we're a bit of dead rubber, but I don't think he just has one off season and then just capitulates. And then with the fact that we haven't really gotten anyone in to replace him, also what we're looking at, Lavia at 19 years old, it's relying a little too much on youth, maybe, or inexperience. Lavia only one season in the Premier League, really.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, but it's the other end of the scale with someone like Paulinho. I know we're probably going into the incomings, but the Paulinho talk is someone at the very end of that bracket, and the money that's being spoken about for that type of player. I think I'd rather keep Fabinho because the market isn't great. If there were absolute, loads of quality CDMs that could come in, then yeah, it softens the blow, doesn't it? But for me, I think it's just that what type of quality replacement could come in for that level of money and give us what we need off the bat, not just kind of like a prospect.
Mm-hmm. I think in terms of the Henderson deal is being mentioned in the comments that it's looking very close to being done. Rumors of him saying his goodbyes. I imagine people will be happy to see the back of him in a lot of ways as a player, but as a person and what he's brought to the club, I think it'll be a very emotional goodbye when he does formally go to Saudi Arabia. Versus with Fabinho, I think we're all cool with him playing another year. I would like to see, is he fully past it, or with fresh legs around him? You bring Lavia as a backup to rotate his minutes, better legs in Soboslai and McAllister in front of him. That's a midfield 3 that actually I think could have a lot of promise. And Charlie, you make a great point. Paulinho for an extra 20 million on top of what you're gonna get for Fabinho is 1 year younger, less miles on him, less minutes played, but you're not making a massive upgrade there. The market isn't great. So in terms of that, it's fine for him to stay. I want to look at the different angle where when the Henderson deal was in a bit of a question mark, we were saying, how can he come back now after he's almost looked at departing? For you, Charlie, is there going to be any almost, I don't want to say moral, but just he had 1 foot out the door and now he's back in. Do you expect that to cause any problems or any issues with him potentially not ending up moving to Saudi Arabia?
I can't see there being as much furore as what the Henderson situation caused to the club. And this is again just the pure speculation that we hear from Twitter and kind of general feeling about what's happened there with Henderson. What's happening with Fabinho feels different. It feels more like an opportunity for both club and the player, whereas the Henderson was very much a player orientated move and the head had been turned. I think the opportunity for Fabinho to earn as much as he would have kind of changed people's aspects. I'm sure any type of player at the club would kind of think about making that move. He has to think about himself, his family, young family as well. But coming back into the club, I think the onus is that he probably would have played more minutes than Henderson if both had stayed anyway. So Klopp knows what to do to try to bring the player back into the good books of other players if there were little bit of discontent. But I just can't see that with Fabinho. I think it's just an opportunity that he took. We would offer really good money, but it's just if it falls through, it falls through.
Indeed. And also, as part of this, Ornstein confirming that the dogs are not relevant to the potential move falling through, which I thought would have been the funniest thing. You know, you never think about those real world things that could impact these moves because the amount of money is just tossed around. And you think about the footballing implications, how they play on a pitch, you know, and then the money. You never think about, does their wife want to go? Do the kids, can they get them into a good school? Is the dogs allowed to be in the country? So that's not a factor. Kev, I'll let you jump in on just the Fabinho, you know, any issues returning, getting back into the squad.
Absolutely not. For me, he's gone on the back of what Hendo was, and why not? All the slack and all the stick was always going to be given to a leader of the group, which is what Henderson is. He's gone on the back of that and has gone in. I think anyone's not aware. Everyone thinks he's gone anyway. I have no qualms. I think I agree with Helly. I think in the comments, I think it'll be, you've got till Thursday to get this done. If not, you're part of the team, part of the squad, and you're going over to Singapore. And I don't think there'll be any problems there'll be less problems from Fabinho than would it be if it was Henderson. So if Henderson was going to be kept, I think there'll be a lot of, I think it would fracture the actual group. I think there'll be a lot of frustration in there that you've caused all this turmoil in the last 2 weeks, and now you're not going, and you've been sulking, you've gone away, and now he's made the road for his own back. He's gone anyway. Fabinho, for me, I have no problems at all, and I think it'll be. I agree with Charlie was saying before. The price for a good CDM is just ridiculous, and maybe in a year's time, as a short-term thing, right? Say to Fabinho, right? If it doesn't happen by then, we'll definitely sell you next season, and you can go and do whatever you want. And then that gives us time. Casido's, if he doesn't go anywhere with Brighton, then gives us time to try and gain some money up for that. But I have no qualms at all of him coming back, and I don't think there'll be many that would be. I think many would see it as a benefit to us and see us in a lot more stronger than what we are without him. I think we're stronger with him, and we'll be weaker without him. For me, so it's a no-brainer for me. Just see what happens by Wednesday. If it hasn't done, then so be it. You're part of the squad, and you got your squad number, and you're back in, and it helps and breeds the likes of Bessesic and maybe possible Lavia to learn and to give them a year under him is tutoring and how to play in that position, and it'll be great. It'll be great for everyone all around for me.
Indeed. We'll jump into Lavia in just a second, but Drew, I'll let you round out our Fabinho discussion. Not sure if you have a different perspective on if he's burned bridges like people claim Henderson has, but also alternatively, I'm interested if where you think the move's going to happen. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? I'm interested in both of those things from you, Drew.
I don't think it's like Kev and Charlie said, I don't think there's going to be much of an impact in terms of if he came back into the team. Henderson, for me, I think Kevin pointed to the fact that he was a leader, like captain, it's not like he announced that he was coming out and like saying like my time at Liverpool's come. It's sort of just like, oh, news in the paper, news that Klopp told him he'd have reduced minutes, and it seemed kind of like a disgruntled move. Like he's like, all right, I'm not going to play, so I'm going to go make my money, and all fair to him, but just didn't leave a great taste. I don't know if there will be a Henderson documentary on LFC TV Go like Bobby Firmino, but Fabinho, I don't think has that kind of like he doesn't have that responsibility on his shoulders. It doesn't have that kind of image in the club of someone who was, the face of the club. I think everyone, liked him in the team. I think every fan supported him. A lot of them threw him under the bus. But as far as the team goes, I didn't see him having much contention in the team. And I don't, they're all professionals. I think it's an easy thing to forget at the end of the day. Like, oh, how does Henderson leaving affect the club? It's like they're just going to move on. They're all professionals. This stuff happens, and Fabinho's case, I think, is the same. It'll be welcome back. It'll be same as before, relationships wise in the club. But I think he'll go. I think this kind of strong arm move from Liverpool is really like anti-up, and I think the Saudi League is trying to get as many names as possible, and Brazilian Champions League winner, Premier League winner, won the Copa with Brazil as well. That's just another name you can add to the list. So I actually think it will get done.
It remains to be seen where that deal ends up falling. Make sure you follow us on all socials. We'll have the updates there as they happen. David Ornstein, the man, been kind of the lead reporter on a lot of these moves in and out of the club. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video if you're enjoying it. Let's bridge the leadership discussion. We talked about Henderson leaving. Let's talk about the implications of that. Your captain goes. Who replaces him? James Milner also leaving this summer means a lot of leadership has kind of opened up. And who will step into that void? I don't think I've had a discussion on stream about captains, and it's a very fascinating one because there's so many different angles you can take it. Do you go with youth in Trent? He's your captain for the next decade plus. Do you go with the guy right now, Virgil van Dijk, but is he a bit too of a almost a quiet leader? Kev, I'll let you make your captain. I always love throwing you under the bus clearly with these questions.
It's all right, mate. It's all right, Jack. That's why I keep coming back every Tuesday.
Your captain, if you were to make the choice, where do you fall? Where do you expect the captaincy to go?
I think it's not just one captain. I think there's a leader group, and that group has diminished with the outs that you've just mentioned. I think it will be Virgil. There'll be Robbo in that group. There will be Alisson in that group, and Trent as well. For me, I'd be giving it to Alisson myself personally. Alisson's the one who I would want to have it. I think he's shown that he deserves to have that captaincy. But I wouldn't, and I'd have Virgil as my vice. But as part of that. As part of that leadership group, you've also got Robbo as well. So although we've lost the likes of Milner and Henderson, we have still got the likes of Robbo there, who's captain of England, Scotland, and has got leadership skills. You've also got Virgil as well, who, although he's quiet, there's different ways there's different styles and a different approach to your leadership, and it's then down to how you're playing on the pitch. If we look at our best, the longest, which is Steven Gerrard, he wasn't really the one. He's more of a Virgil type of player and captain. Then in the fact that he wasn't very, he's not like a Henderson. He's not going to talk his way to. He'll show what to do on the pitch. So for me, I'm Alisson for myself personally. Like
Alisson for Kev. Drew, I'll swing it to you. It's an interesting one as a goalkeeper to be a captain. Who do you expect? Who would you like to see as the man with the armband?
I agreed with everything Kev said, and I'd choose Alisson myself. I don't think the captain necessarily needs to be that vocal leader, like you just said with Gerrard. Like Carragher was that vocal leader at the back. He was the one yelling and screaming at everyone. Robertson can do that. Trent can get up and down the pitch, do that. You got Salah, you got Van Dijk. You have enough leaders in the team to carry the message. I think leading by example, Alisson's the best. How many times last season alone did we just capitulate throughout the entire field, and then Allison comes up with a big save, and he very rarely yells at someone or gets mad at someone, but he'll do the dirty work and get on with it. And I think that behind the scenes too, he seems to get along with everyone. He seems to be a good personality in the dressing room, nice guy, never a bad word about him. So I think behind the scenes kind of stuff too, he could maybe do that job of welcoming in players and making sure they're settled and everything. I think that stuff gets overlooked as well, which was stuff that Henderson did very well. But I don't need to repeat everything that Kevin just said, but Allison's my pick as well.
And with Allison, you've got a guy who is in my opinion, undisputed best in his position in the world, where there's that leadership by example aspect to it. Charlie, are you making it 3 of 3 for the panel on Allison as captain?
No look, back in the net, 3-0.
There we go.
What I will say is, by making Allison captain, and this is just me being devil's advocate, what would that do to Virgil in terms of, because he's vice captain last season? Well, sorry, he was third in line, wasn't he? The natural progression would be that he would then step into the captaincy. If Klopp then has that conversation with him to say, you're not going to be my captain, you're still going to be vice captain, how would that upset the apple cart? That's the only thing that you probably need to consider as part of this conversation. If you can go Allison has it all in terms of the temperament, the composure, the leadership, everything that you would look for. Some of the things that, what was it? Was it the last game of the season when Gakpo got absolutely poleaxed in his chest? Kev, you'll tell me. You've
Yes.
got encyclopedic. And
He did
who was it? Who was it that was actually talking to the ref? It was Allison, and he was demonstrating, and he did it in such a way. It was like, he put his foot in Gakpo's chest. But just the fact that he's able to do that, and for me, Beard Bro, I really, really want Allison to be here for the rest of his career. I think he's brilliant. I worry that maybe if we're not as successful, that we could lose him. Giving him the armband could kind of persuade him to stay that a little bit longer and see out the best years, because he's still very young for a goalkeeper. So someone that's actually quite solid for 4 or 5 years, because a goalkeeper kind of can go on a lot longer than a central defender. And if you start thinking about that, then could you bring that into the conversation? There is that Trent as well conversation as well, because he looks like he's kind of stepping up in terms of the leadership group. Mo, no one's mentioned Mo yet. Mo's captain of Egypt, and he's very speaks really well in terms of interviews, says the right things, is an absolute global superstar for Arabic football, for world football in general, for Liverpool. So if it just depends on how you want to do it. That's a long answer for you. Allison for me.
It's a fascinating discussion. Jen saying Van Dijk captain, Trent vice captain, doesn't include Allison in that one. And saying Trent long term, it feels like he is the long term, but with Allison, as you mentioned, Charlie, he could. I mean, if he doesn't drop off 5-6 years, I mean, then you're getting Trent to his late 20s, early 30s, and he's not getting the captaincy. That is another question mark there with the longevity. Not an easy choice.
It doesn't define Trent, though.
No.
That's the thing. Just because he doesn't get captaincy doesn't define him as a player. He can do things in other ways, especially this upcoming season. If he's going to be playing in more a central midfield, his game will just kind of elevate him in terms of admiration from those within the club, the fans, from people in the Premier League, internationally as well. I think he deserves a lot more in terms of his abilities, because he's been crapped on for far too long, Trent. So yeah, I think he can do things in other ways.
For sure. And there's some other comments I want to bring up, just with interesting points. Never would have thought about this angle with Allison from Vanessa not going to be captain because he's going to use Kelleher more in theoretically the Europa League, which means that he isn't a match in, match out. It's not like I don't think it's a reason for him not to be captain, but it's a train of thought that I never would have gone down. So an interesting point right there. This is one I definitely do think predominantly historically is you want a midfielder or a defender who's just kind of stuck in things as your captain. But Charlie, you brought up the chest tackle on Gakpo is a good point that Allison can still walk out there just as easily and make some points to the referee. So an interesting one for sure long term on the captain. And just to toss my hat in there as well. I think I would go Allison as well. Honestly, I just think the idea of locking him down long term is big. I don't think Trent really is ever going to have his head turned, but Allison, I think, could. Not that we're at risk of losing him, but he's the kind of guy where he could be the best in his position for the next half decade. I think him being the captain, him being one of your leaders, and then you say, all right, here's your next contract, keep him in and around things. I think that's a smart move for Liverpool to make. That's our captain discussion. Henderson likely to leave. We'll see who gets announced as the captain. That will be a fascinating discussion when it is formally announced. Let's dig in now on a very interesting bit of news from Fabio Carvalho, a player that has departed, releasing a bit of a contentious quote, getting people riled up a little bit. He was speaking ahead of their preseason for RB Leipzig. He's on loan now, obviously, no option to buy, so he's not gone from Liverpool. But a very interesting quote, I'll read it for you. Asked about if Klopp has given him advice ahead of his loan move to Germany, he said, I don't really speak to him, to be fair. He didn't really give me any advice. I just had to learn as I go, and I feel that is better for me to mature anyway. When I first heard that quote, it almost startled me a little bit because he is not like slashing against Klopp, but it's kind of a weird one. Charlie, for you, I'll toss it to you first. How do you interpret that quote? It's not really a positive way to look at it, but how negative almost are you looking at it?
I think it's just quite passive, to be fair. I think it's kind of a non-starter of a conversation for a player that wasn't in Klopp's ideas for the majority of last season. I don't think Klopp would lose sleep over those comments. I don't think it's very much a surprise that something has come out in terms of Fabio. There's been kind of odd comments on his social media posts, being the photograph boy or whatever it is, kind of doesn't really sit well with what probably the club are looking for. So the article was quite interesting, the comments. So it would appear that Fabio was a player put upon Klopp rather than Klopp insisting that he has, Carvalho available, made available. We pursued him and get him in, and that could be, make sense. We don't play the type of football that Fabio would prefer. We look for 1-6 and 2-8s or 2-6s and 1-8. We don't look for generally a number 10. We haven't done that for a long time. Certainly not under Klopp. So yeah, I'm not surprised. I think that comment, that particular one, not really bothered, to be fair. I don't think he'll be playing in Liverpool shirt ever again. Maybe pre-season, but once he's comes back in, he'll be out again, I think.
Yeah, it is an interesting one with the news. Let us know in the comments what you expect for Carvalho long term. How those comments, you read those, just kind of him saying that he doesn't talk to Klopp too much. There's not a lot of doesn't seem like this was a signing that Klopp was driving behind. Liverpool were clearly, they wanted him in January of last season. Couldn't get him, got him in the summer. He had a few moments that were really kind of bright, but he didn't have a natural fit. That's been a big issue with him and Harvey Elliott, where it feels like their best spots as 10s, almost central 10s in a 4-2-3-1, just don't really exist in this squad. For you, Charlie saying might not be in a Liverpool shirt again. Do you have the same level of pessimism with him long term?
Absolutely. It shows the level of maturity of the player, and a maturity that is very immature, which at the time I thought is one of the factors as to the why he was left out. Scores the winner against Newcastle and not to be seen since. Lo and behold, we hear about what happened with the Portugal squad as well. We've got Portuguese coaches as well, which we won't sit right with. I totally agree with you with the number 10 situation. It feels as though we were trying to fit him in. It didn't fit well. It didn't. And I also get to the fact that he didn't want to learn either. He wasn't willing to take on the ability and take it with both arms and go, right, Sam, I've got the shirt on my back. It's kind of like, well, he's asking me to play here. I can't play there. There's you need to have you can take a horse to water, but you know at the end of the day, if he's not willing to accept that, he has to train and he has to prove himself. But does it surprise me? Absolutely not. I was fully expecting at least some comments coming out, especially with them being at Leipzig now. I'm feeling as though, well, I'm now at home. I felt it was part of us to see how mature he could be. Use this as a way of getting out of the limelight of the Premier League. Try and mature yourself at a club, get yourself some minutes under your belt, and come back with a bit more maturity, and you got a chance of coming back into the squad. That hasn't happened. I can see him going at the end of the next season, if not before, for a fee. And why not just get into Leipzig now and go, yeah, you can have Carvalho. How much extra do you want for Gaviol? And try and do a deal for that. Why not? It's days at Liverpool are numbered for me, sadly, because there is a player there.
Yeah, and I agree. Everybody's kind of had a very similar sentiment to both Charlie and Kev, that player there, but just questioning his fit long term. It feels like he's got the kind of profile that could fit as the right-sided 10-8 situation, where he's kind of overlapping, underlapping a bit. Defensive responsibilities exist, but can flourish a bit more as an attacker. Drew, for you on those comments, how long-term do you expect his Liverpool future to be? Obviously, this loan will tell a lot. Does his value spike? Does he have a bad season in Germany? That will play a big role in his future. But in terms of just the fit and the maturity, the interpretation, the comments for you on Carvalho.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good look. Like, I think somebody in the comments, Tolu, was saying that, yeah, there it is. You brought it up. Thank you. I'm confused. Should he have lied? Klopp's not perfect, just to make Klopp look good, etc. I think that goes towards Charlie was saying. It's like reading a lot into it. I think that's a tough question to ask. Like, he's being truthful, but he then went on to go, like, I have to, do this on my own, like, etc. It's just, he could have easily just said, no, Klopp didn't say anything to me. We didn't have the chance to speak. And I think that goes to, like, Kev talking about maturity. And it's not just this one-off incident. It's, with the Portuguese, the U21 side or the U23 side, like, it's just not a good look for a player. You look at the players, Kev went down the list, even historically, Dirk Kuyt came in as a striker, played as a winger. It's like, how much do you want to play for Liverpool? Like, are you willing to change your position? Trent, Curtis Jones, the list goes on of players who just find their position and want to play for the team. And it just looks, at the current moment, he's young. Like, I think we have to give him some leeway in that regards, but it's just a bad look if it just keeps coming out. You're, a bit chirping on Twitter, chirping on Instagram, not getting along with your international side. There's no reason to go on. Like, I think that comment Tolu said is interesting. Like, I would have hoped Klopp would have done more to try to bring him in, but at the same time, it's it's a two-way street, and it doesn't look like either party's cooperating.
Yeah, and I think for Klopp, not that it's not his job to take care of and foster relationships with his players, but he almost got bigger fish to fry than Fabio Carvalho. It was such a bad season in a lot of ways. He didn't have the time or bandwidth, I imagine, to work on his third or fourth choice option in a lot of positions. He was struggling with his first choices. So he wasn't really able to probably dedicate the time to developing Carvalho as he would have liked, I imagine. He would have hoped the ship was kind of just functioning like a machine, but it needed a lot of tweaking, a lot of fixing. It seems like it's gotten to a very good spot, but I think Carvalho was an unfortunate victim to it. I don't think he doesn't hate the club. I don't think there's any like terribly bad blood, but it does feel like it's got an awkward air to it, that his long-term future is certainly up in the air. And the loan move, I think, is a very smart choice, where I think that they offer 10 million for him. Leipzig did as an upfront, like, purchase him, which would just be very, like, way too low. I think he could be easily 30-40 million next summer if he has a good loan spell, which that's a bit of a cash influx that maybe goes to a player that Klopp might find a bit of a better fit with. So let's round out the stream with the lead news. The bid, according to David Ornstein, for Romeo Lavia, £37 million has been rejected by Southampton. They're hoping for 50, so a £13 million price difference between the asking and the bid. But there's a bid supposedly has been formally lodged by Liverpool, according to Ornstein. Drew, I'll go to you first. It feels when a bid has been made, we're very, very close. It's really, this is something that's going to happen, matter of when, not if, on Lavia. And for you, what confidence level do you have with him being signed, and at what price point do you expect?
7 or 8 on confidence, and I think around 40 million. I think that'd be with add-ons, but I know that's probably not. They're holding out for 50, which I think is unreasonable. Like if you look at Liverpool's last few signings, got a lot more pedigree than Lavia. Not saying he's not a promising player, could be one of the best players in the position in the Premier League, but Southampton, it's kind of, they just got relegated. He's only had 1 season. They really don't have much to work with unless there are other clubs in for him. And I know Arsenal is rumored, but it looks like Partey's staying, or Partey's staying. And I think it depends on that. I think it depends on what other clubs are interested and how long Liverpool want to grind this out. Because I think that they don't need to make this buy. I think we need, like, especially if Fabinho stays, then you have Bajcetic's cover. That we're having that Trent experiment in the 6. Don't think that's particularly working out, but it's got a little more wiggle room. But I expect us to get it done. 7 or 8 confidence level though.
Yeah,
40 million.
Charlie, for you on Lavia, where do you stand on the signing? Confidence, and where do you think the price negotiation will lead?
Yeah, so pretty confident it will get done. I think there's probably a number of factors. I agree with the 40 million, but I think that's going to be the base fee that's going to be agreed for the player. I think that'll be the base, and then some add-ons on top of that. However, I think what Southampton are probably looking for with their counter offer is more money up front. I think that's probably what they're looking for, so they can build on, getting more players in to try to get out of the Championship, because it's notoriously difficult trying to get out of that league at the very first attempt. So yeah, a really good player. I think he's kind of. It's weird that his reputation has grown over the summer for us, probably certainly for me anyway, because at the start of the summer my focus was probably on Thuram and Kone and other players, and getting them through the door, but they've kind of disappeared. And now, because we're after Lavia, his reputation for me has kind of grown and learned more about him. So yeah, I'd like to get him in, keep Fabinho if we can for another year. But one thing I probably wanted to kind of mention previously was, I think the club can't take risks now with the Fabinho deal, whether it's going to go ahead or not.
Mm-hmm.
They have to kind of risk assess that to say, if that does go through, fine, we have to get Lavia in anyway. And if he doesn't and he stays, we still should have Lavia, because the window is open for us still, 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So football's a long time, and 5 weeks can change all manners. We didn't even think about 5 weeks ago that Henderson and Fabinho were going to be leaving, but
Nope.
Here we are. Henderson's filming his goodbye videos as we speak, today. So football's just a strange world, especially with the Saudi involvement.
Mm-hmm. It's a very strange time to be alive around the sport. Kev, for you on the signing, let's factor in Fabinho here a little bit. It's a question with the defensive midfield spot. The market is strange. Arsenal signed the premier option for £100 million plus £5 million in add-ons, and Liverpool looking for less than half that for Romeo Lavia. For you, and he's again 19 years old. He was signed for just over 10 million by Southampton from the City Academy. He played 29 matches in the Premier League. That is the extent to his senior experience. it's a massive question mark if Fabinho goes. If he stays, is he a priority? Is he still a signing for you? What do you anticipate? Because there's been the kind of double whammy of Ornstein news today. Fabinho deal, a bit of a delay, and the bid for Lavia. I'm interested for you on what you've been interpreting things.
The way I see it as well, you got Casido at an impasse with Chelsea and Brighton, and I know a lot of people will be going, well, why not we go for them? That impasse still happens. I'm quite happy with Lavia coming in. I was at the start. If you look at our midfield now, I know a lot of people want 3, maybe 2 more in, but you look at the players that are left. We don't like Naby got 13 games last season. That's 20% of games. You had Ox 13 games last season. There's 20% of games. Hendo's going to be reduced down to 20. So those 3 will be replaced by players that play 95 to 90 to 100% of games. Allows you to be more rotational, allows you to less injury problems. It allows you to get a structure in place and players in place that can provide you with what you need and the outlet that you need to in certain games. Allows you to prioritize certain games. I'd see Lavia coming in. I'd see Fabinho being playing in the, and this is how I adopt it. I'd have Lavia playing in the Europa games. As I keep saying, there's 27 games between now and the end of December. That is without 2 games that gets you to the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. So at the very most, you're playing 29 games. We're in a competition that we don't really want to be in. It gives Lavia and our fringe players a lot more game time. It allows you to have people more up to match fitness than what they would usually have. So there's a lot of positives with the fact of Lavia coming in and with what we've done already. Don't bear in mind, we've got versatility in that middle of that park now. So we've got McAllister who can play as a 6. You've got Soboslai who can play across the middle of the park. You've got Gappo who can predominantly fall into there as well. And that leaves you a lot more, as well as Curtis Jones as well. There's a lot of options. There's a lot more versatility in there than what we're looking at. We're looking at certain players for certain positions. I don't see it like that. I see it as an option, maybe one more coming in, because I do think that FSG have treated Trent as one of your midfield options this season. Going forward, I still want another. Lavia fits the bill for me. He comes in, he gets his game time, he then learns in training from Fabinho. He'll be on the bench, if anything, for 20 of the Premier League games leading up to Christmas. It's a time to be at the club. He'll have European football. There's a lot staying than what I can see is negative. And even if we don't bring any other midfielders in, you've still got options and versatility in that park that we haven't had last season, and the younger and have more legs. So for me, that's Lavia. I have no questions about him. Yeah, he's only had 29 games last season. He's 19 years of age. I'm more than happy and more than confident that he can come in and do a job for us. And alongside the likes of a Fabinho as well, it allows him to just control. If you look at what Fabinho had to deal with last season, he was not only trying to play his own role, he was looking to play other roles as well, because people weren't at their actual levels what they needed to be. It was a bad year to be in that number 6 role for us last season, because you were trying to do about 3 or 4 jobs across the games. It's a difficult one. His priority is just concentrate on your game and concentrate on playing your role. It'll be easier this season. You've got the engine, you've got the workload around you, you've got people who can do, you've got the legs. Even if we just bring Lavia in and we then concentrate on a centre back and a right back, I'll be happy with that. And I'll go with that. I know many won't agree with me with that. I know people will want more. If it's doable, yeah. But if not, then what's the point in spending money in one position when we need others? And we've got basically the centre backs going in the same predicaments as what the midfield is this season.
Definitely, Kev. I totally agree with you in terms of the midfield balance. If Fabinho stays, if Lavia comes in, it feels like a group that's maybe one short. But considering the position we've put ourselves in, the amount of players we need to sign, it's two arguments. We messed up in the past. We should have signed players a few windows past, so we didn't have as many issues this summer. But if we get Lavia, I think the midfield is in an okay enough spot where you can then prioritize a center back, because that feels like it's an issue that's growing.
It is, because as I've said, the 4 players, if you include Milner, you're only going to be getting about 20% out of them over the course of the season, and you're replacing them 4 with 3 players who are young, versatile, and are going to give you 95 to 98% more appearance options than what those 3 or 4 altogether could give you. So it automatically gives you more chance and less chance. It allows the team to be more free flowing, knowing that I don't have to play this position one weekend, or God knows what I'm going to be playing next week, because is he going to be fit? There's people around you now who are going to be predominantly playing, and have over the last 2 to 3 seasons played 40 games or more. So you've got players there who are coming up to providing you those better options, and more of a balance, as you say. I know people want numbers in there, but it's not about the numbers. It's about how much game time those players are giving you at the minute. And there's more opportunities this season for them to get game time because of the Europa League. I don't think that's a priority for us until we get to the quarters. So for me, you've got 27 games to the end of December that you can prioritize and tell the Finnish players, we can give you more games, even with the 6 Europa games and the 2 UEFA EFL games. These 8 games is more than what they would have had last season. You can't do that with the Champions League. You can't turn around to your Finnish players and say, you can play this week in Europe. You don't have that luxury. We do have this season, and that's where you prioritize the game time, and you're able to do it a lot more better than what we have done over the last few years, because you've got more games within the players that you've brought in against the players that have gone out.
Indeed. I think it's an interesting one. I hope we sign Lavia regardless of what happens with Fabinho. My interpretation of the news from Ornstein with the delay and the bid regardless is that we want to bring him in, but it feels like whatever other option is that experienced defensive mid, if it's not Fabinho, feels like it's missing something. It's either too old for Palhinha, it's got question marks with Cheikh Doucouré, where you're just not buying the perfect player. And considering our past transfer decision making, we always want to wait rather than go for a flawed option. It's tough to wait when you're going to stick 2 19-year-olds as your holding midfielders. So that's a tough question. Let's assume Fabinho stays and Lavia is brought in. So you've got Milner, Henderson, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain leaving the midfield. You got 3 guys coming in. Charlie, is that enough in the midfield where you can then turn your attentions this window to other spots? Considering I'm not sure there's a great other option to sign. Maybe a Thuram, maybe a Kone. Both of those have signing question marks to them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think the key decision that needs to be made is around Fabinho. If he stays, then that helps us have a better unit, more well-rounded unit, someone that can actually play as the anchor and then teach others and protect others, and etc. etc. That's what we're looking at. There was another name that was mentioned today, the Fluminense player, Andre Trindade, I think it is. How good he is, how well he would adapt if we were to get him. It looks like if we were to get him, then it would be on a cheap, which is great, because we're talking about FSG here. They don't like to spend too much money, but a player is a player. If he has the capabilities to do it, then why not? Another Brazilian coming in, I believe he's Brazilian, coming into the club, and that kind of solidifies that core Portuguese speaking group within the team as well. So there's lots of benefits to that type of player coming in. But yeah, the main thing is, if Fabinho stays, then that helps. If he goes, then that just creates more problems, and the market is not as good as what it used to be. So yeah, it leaves a gap.
It's an interesting one to come up with in the future. I'm interested. Do we think this transfer happens as a group? I think it does personally. Are we giving the thumbs up that this happens?
Lavia,
yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love that. I would love to see that. not sure kind of what the final thoughts we want on the stream are, but I didn't get a chance to catch the preseason match, which was yesterday, the day before. Not sure if you guys were able to catch that. How, Kev, I guess I'll toss it to you. How dire is the defensive need? And obviously, you don't need to make wide conclusions from a match against a German second tier side, I believe they are. But when you're looking at that one, and Gomez and Matip being your immediate center back backups, we've went into summer. We thought need a couple midfielders and then probably a left-sided center back who could play in that instead of Robertson. If we want to try this 3-box-3, could be a backup center back. How? Because there's been absolutely no rumors since Colwill kind of becomes a necessity for Chelsea following the Fofana injury. It feels like everything's dried up. How dire is that defensive need?
It is pre-season. I'm not going to go into too much because Adrian was in goal.
Make big assumptions, big conclusions.
I'm not, because I done this in the 1920 season and I saw a woeful Liverpool team play against Napoli and get beat 3-0 in a pre-season where we didn't win a game and we won and we go on and win the league. I get it. We all want to win games. One of the goals yesterday was offside. They don't have VAR in the preseason games. So, that one gets chalked off there. Decision making at the back is probably the biggest fundamental factor I'll take out of it. The decision of Adrian to play a ball to a young centre-back when the option at right centre-back was where the ball should go. And even a fat idiot like me knows that. Tells you everything you need to know. I'm not going to go lay into them. It doesn't bode. What I will say about it is, which you've got to look at is, and I looked at, is that you just hope that we bring someone in, because I don't want to be left with the likes of a Matip and a Gomez in as our two centre-back pairings. The only time I want to see that is if we've gone through in the Europa League and it's the last game in the Europa League group stages and it's away in Russia. By all means, let those two fly over there, spend their time and energy and get them games in under the belt. But I'm not going to lay into it. The second team was predominantly a lot of young players as well. The first, what I've noticed this season with the pre-seasons is you've got a lot of the senior squad players playing predominantly more than what the youngsters have, and the amount of youngsters that have gone away it's not up to the same amount that would normally go away with the team. The fact that you've got predominantly your senior players playing from the first game is telling me that we've got a close-knit squad and he wants to get those fundamentals right into them. But I'm not going to deal into them. The only one who needs to be laid into was Adrian for me, but I'll leave it at that.
He's a third choice keeper. We can let him have his day. He won't get, even if he's watching the stream today, just interested in some news around Liverpool, we won't be tearing into you too much, Adrian. Charlie, just kind of final thoughts kind of on defenders. Do you expect an acquisition this summer? How big a splurge in the defense do you expect?
Yeah, I was interested to see hear what Drew's going to say, because he put his hand up, but really quickly, so we can hand over to Drew. I don't think we'll get the type of play that we want, Colwill, as time's gone on, and this situation, just like Zach perfectly kind of called out with the Fofana injury, Colwill's kind of importance just grows at Chelsea. If he's the type of player that we want, we're not going to get him, unfortunately. Other players, just like the CDM position, there's not a wealth of left-footed centre-backs out there that are really, really good at whatever that we're trying to do. So, yeah, I can't see us getting anyone just yet, unless the market opens up and some absolute magnificent player just suddenly decides that he wants to join Liverpool. But yeah, I can't see it happening.
Yeah. And Drew, apologies for not getting you in when you put your hand up. Interested in your thoughts on defenders and just general things right now.
No, I think I was putting my hand up to Kevin when he was talking about Adrian. I don't know. Yeah, I still remember the Aston Villa game. I think was it Van Dijk? I don't think he bodes a lot of confidence in the defense. So I was kind of laughing at that. It's 4 a.m. when I was watching the game. Albeit I wasn't, super like tactically, adept at understanding everything. But I was like, first half looked great. And I saw second half, Adrian was starting. I was like, what? And then proceeded to implode. But yeah, I think it's one of those ones you like read into preseason too much. Like it's a cliche, but it really is getting the legs there, like getting everyone up to speed. Like Kev gave the great example of us having a terrible preseason before winning the league. Like flip opposite where we've absolutely blitzed preseasons and have terrible seasons. So, but I do think we need another center back. The Colwell one was an interesting one because it looked like we had to pay, arm and a leg for him, which, English tax, everything involved. But I think it'd be bad if Van Dijk went down or Konate went down, and then we had to rely on the backups. But like Charlie, I don't know what the ready-made options are. It doesn't seem like there's a really great deal out there that wouldn't cost a fortune. So it'd be interesting.
Simple solution: invest a lot in, praying. That's what you do. You just pay the local churches, every local religion. Just put your efforts towards hoping our players don't get hurt. But the final thought from me, though, Nunez, he's scoring 50 this season. I am fully on the train. I'm back on it. Seeing those preseason goals, I'm back with it. That'll do it for our stream here today. A nice, just under an hour. We'll be back live again tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. UK time. Sometimes a little different, but make sure you have the notifications on in case we jump on a little bit early. But for Kev, for Drew, and Charlie, I've been Jack. Having a great time here for the LC Transfer Room. We'll catch you next time.